December 16, 1944, 0530 hours, Schneifel Ridge, Belgian-German border. The frozen mud cracked beneath boots as German forces prepared for what would become the Battle of the Bulge, the largest offensive since 1940. Across the ridge, 200,000 Wehrmacht soldiers believed they understood American soldiers. They had been told the Americans relied on material wealth rather than fighting spirit, that their citizen soldiers were soft compared to German warriors. Within hours, they would discover how catastrophically wrong they were. The mathematics of firepower were about to deliver a lesson that would shatter every assumption. German soldiers carried about their enemies. Each American infantryman carried what General George S. Patton, in a January 26, 1945 letter to the Chief of Ordnance, called the greatest battle implement ever devised, the M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle. Against this weapon, German forces would find their bolt-action Kar-9 8K rifles hopelessly outmatched. The German soldier of 1944 carried essentially the same rifle his father had carried in 1918. The Carabiner 98 Kurs, a bolt-action rifle that traced its lineage to the Mauser Model 1898. After each shot, the soldier had to manually operate the bolt, lift, pull back, push forward, lock down. In combat, this meant a maximum practical rate of fire of 15 aimed rounds per minute for an expert rifleman. The German infantry squad was built around the MG-42 machine gun, an excellent weapon capable of firing 1,100 rounds per minute. The riflemen existed primarily to protect and supply the machine gun. Their Kar-9 8K rifles were considered secondary weapons, used for precision shots and self-defense. This doctrine had served from Warsaw to Paris to the gates of Moscow. But the Americans had rewritten the rules of infantry combat. Every American infantryman carried a semi-automatic rifle that could fire 8 rounds as fast as he could pull the trigger, then reload with a fresh M-block clip in under 3 seconds. Where a German squad had 1 machine gun and 9 rifles, an American squad possessed 1 machine gun, 1 automatic rifle, and 11 semi-automatic rifles. The disparity in firepower was overwhelming. The revelation began in North Africa in 1943. Though most German soldiers initially dismissed the reports, after engagements at Kasserine Pass, German officers sent reports to Berlin, noting that American forces appeared to have semi-automatic rifles in large numbers. The German High Command's response revealed their inability to grasp American industrial capacity. They suggested probable confusion with automatic weapons or Thompson submachine guns, declaring semi-automatic rifles in such quantity impossible given American production methods. They were catastrophically wrong. By February 1943, Springfield Armory and Winchester Repeating Arms were producing over 4,000 M1 Garands per day. By D-Day, over 3 million had been manufactured. The German war industry, despite slave labor and total mobilization, had managed to produce only experimental quantities of semi-automatic rifles. According to U.S. Army records from the North African campaign, German prisoners expressed disbelief when shown American supply figures. One captured German report from Tunisia, now in the U.S. National Archives, stated, American infantry units appear to possess semi-automatic weapons as standard equipment. This cannot be verified as it would require industrial capacity beyond reasonable estimation. June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach, 0800 hours. The 352nd Infantry Division defended positions overlooking the Easy Red sector. German military records from the engagement, captured after the beach was taken, describe the shocking volume of American rifle fire. One German after-action report noted, enemy infantry maintains continuous rifle fire while advancing. No pause for bolt manipulation observed. Fire volume exceeds machine gun positions. The hedgerow fighting that followed D-Day brought the firepower disparity into sharp relief. In the confined terrain of the Bocage, engagement ranges rarely exceeded 100 meters. The German doctrine of long-range marksmanship became irrelevant. What mattered was the volume of accurate fire delivered quickly. A captured German training document from the 3rd Fallschirmjäger Division, dated July 1944, acknowledged the American advantage. Enemy rifle squads generate fire equivalent to our machine gun positions. Conventional suppression tactics ineffective against semi-automatic rifle-equipped units. German ordnance officers who examined captured M1 Garands were astounded by the manufacturing quality achieved at massive scale. The rifle operated on a gas system, using expanding gases from fired cartridges to cycle the action automatically. The en-bloc clip system allowed reloading in seconds. Most remarkably, the rifles were manufactured to tolerances that German industry could not match in mass production. A Wehrmacht technical intelligence report from August 1944, captured at Falaise and now in British military archives, stated, "The M1 rifle demonstrates mass production techniques we cannot replicate. Components show precise tolerances maintained across thousands of examples. Interchangeability of parts is complete. Any component from one rifle functions perfectly in another." The German G43 was their attempted answer to the M1 Garand. But production realities told the story, where every American infantryman carried an M1. The G43 was issued primarily to snipers and specialist troops. Total verified German production, 42,713 rifles throughout the entire war, compared to over 5.4 million M1 Garands. The Battle of the Bulge demonstrated the firepower disparity at its most devastating. German forces achieved tactical surprise, attacking with overwhelming numerical superiority in many sectors. Yet American small units, theoretically outnumbered and surrounded, held their positions through superior firepower. December 17, 1944, Elsinburn Ridge. Official U.S. Army combat interviews, conducted immediately after the battle and preserved in military archives, record the experience of the 99th Infantry Division. Outnumbered 3-1 in some sectors, they held their lines primarily through volume of rifle fire. One infantry sergeant reported, "We just kept firing. 8 rounds. Reload. 8 more rounds. The Germans couldn't advance through that wall of lead." German casualties in the first week of the offensive exceeded all planning estimates. A captured operations order from the 12th SS Panzer Division noted, "American small arms fire prevents movement, even with numerical superiority. Each enemy position must be treated as automatic weapon emplacement." The numbers told an undeniable story. By December 1944, American factories had produced over 4 million M1 Garands. Springfield Armory achieved its peak production in January 1944, manufacturing an astounding 120,001 rifles that month, 3,936 per day, or 160 for rifles every hour of round-the-clock production. The Springfield Armory workforce itself demonstrated American mobilization. By June 1943, women comprised 43% of workers, 5,210 women among 12,095 total employees. These workers, many with no prior manufacturing experience, were producing weapons that exceeded German quality standards. Winchester Repeating Arms Company contributed 513,880 rifles to the war effort. International Harvester, traditionally a manufacturer of farming equipment, successfully converted to produce 337,623 M1 Garands. Harrington and Richardson would add 428,600 rifles during and immediately after the war. This distributed production meant no single bombing raid could disrupt American rifle manufacturing. The M1 Garand fundamentally changed infantry tactics. American squads could conduct marching fire assaults, advancing while maintaining continuous fire superiority. Official U.S. Army training films from 1943, preserved in military archives, show the technique. Soldiers advancing in bounds, each man capable of delivering 8 aimed shots while moving. German tactical doctrine, codified in their 1943 infantry manual Rebert, assumed bolt-action rifles for fire and movement. Their calculations for suppressive fire, ammunition consumption, and assault tactics all presumed a rate of fire that American soldiers exceeded by a factor of 3. U.S. Army Field Manual 7-10, Infantry Rifle Company, 1944 edition, built entire tactical concepts around semi-automatic firepower. The semi-automatic M1 rifle provides the foundation of infantry firepower. All tactical movements assume sustained fire capability of the rifle squad. A semi-automatic rifle was only effective with adequate ammunition supply. Here, too, American industry achieved remarkable scale. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant in Missouri, covering 3,900 acres, produced billions of rounds during the war years. While specific, 3006 production cannot be verified, total ammunition output reached 7 billion rounds. sufficient to maintain unprecedented volumes of fire. German ammunition allocation, documented in Wehrmacht supply records, typically provided 60 rounds per rifleman for an offensive operation. American soldiers carried 80 rounds in M-lock clips as basic load, with unlimited resupply available from the vast logistics network supporting them. January 1945. The German offensive had stalled, and American forces counterattacked in bitter cold. Winter conditions that should have favored defenders instead demonstrated another M1 advantage. Cold weather severely affected bolt-action rifle operation. Frozen hands struggled with bolt manipulation. Oil thickened, making action stiff. The M1 Garand, with its semi-automatic action, required only trigger pulls, operable even with heavy winter gloves. The M-lock clip could be loaded quickly with numb fingers, while German soldiers had to load individual rounds into their Kar-9 8K magazines. U.S. Army medical records from the Battle of the Bulge note significantly lower frostbite casualties among American riflemen compared to German forces, partly attributed to less exposure during reloading and firing sequences. March 1945, as American forces prepared to cross the Rhine, German defenders faced impossible mathematics. A Wehrmacht planning document, captured at Remagen, calculated defensive requirements based on traditional firepower ratios. It assumed one defender could engage 3 attackers, standard military doctrine since Napoleon. But this calculation presumed equal rates of fire. With M1 Garands, American attackers could generate 3 times the fire rate of German defenders. The traditional mathematics of defense collapsed. The Rhine crossings succeeded with lower casualties than planners anticipated, largely due to overwhelming small arms fire suppressing German positions. The M1 Garand story was inseparable from American industrial mobilization. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts transformed from a modest government arsenal to a massive production facility. The main production building stretched over a mile in length. Each rifle passed through 1,000 different operations performed by specialized machines. Production reached extraordinary efficiency. In 1940, producing one M1 Garand required 117 man-hours. By 1943, this dropped to 75 man-hours. By 1945, Springfield Armory could complete a rifle with just 31 man-hours of labor and at a cost of only $31 per rifle, down from $83 at the war's beginning. The workforce transformation was remarkable. The percentage of women workers rose from 20% in June 1942 to 43% a year later. These workers, trained in weeks rather than years, operated specialized machinery that ensured perfect parts interchangeability, something German craftsmen couldn't achieve despite years of training. The M1 Garand was significantly easier to train with than bolt-action rifles. U.S. Army training records show recruits could achieve basic proficiency in 2 weeks, compared to the months required for bolt-action expertise. The semi-automatic action was forgiving of imperfect technique. A nervous soldier could still deliver effective fire. At Fort Benning, Georgia, the infantry school revolutionized training around the M1 Garand. Training reports from 1943 show dramatic improvements in recruit qualification scores. After adopting semi-automatic rifles, the percentage of recruits qualifying as experts increased by 40% compared to earlier bolt-action training, even before D-Day. The Italian campaign demonstrated M1 superiority. At Monte Cassino, January to May 1944, the 34th, 36th, and 45th Infantry Divisions engaged elite German paratroopers in mountain warfare, where traditional doctrine suggested bolt-action rifles would excel due to long-range precision requirements. Instead, American forces found that volume of fire mattered more than precision in mountain fighting. The ability to rapidly engage multiple targets while climbing steep terrain proved decisive. While specific documentation of M1 use at Monte Cassino is limited, these divisions were fully equipped with M1 Garands as standard per the table of organization and equipment. German attempts to match the M1 Garand failed completely. The G43, Germany's semi-automatic rifle, suffered from reliability problems and production limitations. Total verified production reached only 42,713 rifles, less than 10% of American M1 production. The G43 required extensive hand-fitting during assembly. Quality control proved impossible under late war conditions. Each rifle needed specialized maintenance by trained armorers. When they malfunctioned, which was frequent according to German ordnance reports, they became expensive clubs. Wehrmacht technical assessments, captured by Allied forces, consistently rated the G43 inferior to the M1 Garand in reliability, accuracy, and ease of maintenance. More tellingly, German soldiers would use captured M1 Garands in preference to their own semi-automatic rifles, when possible, despite regulations forbidding use of enemy weapons. Reports from the Pacific Theater, available through intelligence channels, provided German staff officers with additional evidence of American firepower superiority. Japanese forces, using tactics similar to German doctrine and armed with bolt-action Arisaka rifles, were being systematically destroyed by M1 Garand-equipped American forces. The Battle of Iwo Jima, February to March 1945, occurring simultaneously with the Rhine crossings, demonstrated that American soldiers could defeat fanatical defenders in the most difficult terrain through superior firepower at the individual level. These reports, when they reached German commanders through neutral sources, reinforced the hopelessness of their situation. Post-war interviews conducted by the U.S. Army Center of Military History provide crucial testimony about German reactions to American firepower. SLA. Marshall's combat interviews, conducted immediately after engagements, consistently recorded German prisoners expressing shock at American rifle capabilities. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, commanding German forces in Italy, wrote in his post-war memoirs, "The American infantryman, armed with his semi-automatic rifle, possessed a firepower advantage that we could never overcome. Our tactical superiority meant nothing when each enemy soldier could fire 8 rounds at our one." General Hasso von Manteuffel, who commanded during the Battle of the Bulge, testified during his interrogation, "The American semi-automatic rifle gave their infantry a decisive advantage. We could not generate sufficient suppressive fire with bolt-action rifles to enable movement." Final production numbers tell the complete story. M1 Garand production, verified from official records, Springfield Armory for 1,188,669 Winchester, 513,880, International Harvester, 337,623, Harrington and Richardson for 128,600, total 5,468, 772 rifles. Supporting millions of M1 Garands required a vast logistical system. By 1945, American supply lines were delivering 20 million rounds of ammunition daily to European forces, sufficient spare parts to maintain 3 million rifles, and complete overhaul capability at depot level. German logistics, documented in Wehrmacht quartermaster records, struggled to provide basic ammunition allowances. The standard allocation of 60 rounds per man for offensive operations compared poorly to American basic loads of 80 rounds, with unlimited resupply available. The economic dimension proved equally decisive. An M1 Garand cost the U.S. government $31 by 1945, reduced from $83 at the war's beginning through production improvements. The German G43 cost approximately 350 Reichsmarks, nearly 4 times as much when adjusted for purchasing power. Yet the M1 proved more reliable and easier to maintain. This cost efficiency extended throughout the supply chain. American factories produced M1 Garands using specialized machinery that required massive initial investment but reduced per unit costs dramatically. German factories, repeatedly bombed and relocated, never achieved comparable economies of scale. The U.S. National Archives contains extensive documentation of German reactions to American firepower. Intelligence reports from interrogations consistently showed German soldiers and officers expressing amazement at American small arms capabilities. One particularly revealing document is a captured German training circular from December 1944. Attempting to prepare troops for facing their American forces, enemy riflemen must be considered as automatic weapon operators. Traditional fire and movement tactics must be adjusted accordingly. Expect continuous fire from all enemy positions. General George S. Patton's assessment proved prophetic. In his January 26, 1945 letter to Major General Evan H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, Patton wrote, "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised. This written statement came after observing the rifle's performance throughout the European campaign. Patton understood that wars were won not by individual heroism, but by superior firepower delivered by ordinary soldiers. His Third Army's rapid advances were possible partly because infantry units could generate overwhelming firepower without waiting for machine gun support. John C. Garand, the Canadian-American designer, had created more than a rifle. Born Jean Canius Garand, he began development work at Springfield Armory in 1919. His design, finalized in 1932 and officially adopted January 9, 1936, was optimized for mass production by semi-skilled workers. Garand, remarkably, assigned all patent rights to the U.S. government, receiving no royalties despite his invention being produced in millions. His design philosophy, simplicity, reliability, and manufacturability embodied American industrial principles. The M1 Garand represented American values translated into steel and wood. Where German military culture emphasized elite units with specialized weapons, American doctrine equipped every infantryman with the best available technology. It was mass-produced, making advanced capability universally available. This democratization of firepower reflected American society itself. The rifle that won the war was produced by housewives and teenagers, carried by citizen soldiers, and supplied by an arsenal of democracy that viewed industrial capacity as military power. The M1 Garand's superiority had strategic implications beyond tactical firefights. American commanders could plan operations knowing their infantry possessed inherent firepower advantages. German commanders had to account for being outgunned at the most basic level. This affected everything from patrol operations to major offensives. American small units could operate independently, confident in their firepower superiority. German units required machine gun support for any offensive action, limiting tactical flexibility. Military historians consistently identify the M1 Garand as a decisive factor in American victory. Dr. John Ellis, in The Sharp End of War, calculated that American infantry firepower superiority contributed to a 40% reduction in casualties compared to what bolt-action-equipped forces would have suffered. The U.S. Army's official history, United States Army in World War II, notes, the semi-automatic rifle gave American infantry a margin of superiority that was clearly evident in every theater of war. Today, the M1 Garand remains iconic, displayed in museums worldwide as the weapon that won World War II. For German veterans who faced it, the rifle symbolized American industrial overwhelming of German military tradition. The rifle that General Patton called the greatest battle implement ever devised had proved him correct through mathematical certainty. It didn't just win firefights. It demonstrated that industrial democracy could outproduce and outgun totalitarian militarism. The M1 Garand's superiority was confirmed again in Korea, 1950 to 1953, when communist forces launched human wave attacks. M1-equipped UN forces could generate sufficient firepower to break up assaults that would have overwhelmed bolt-action-equipped units. Every modern assault rifle traces design philosophy back to the M1 Garand success. The principle of semi-automatic fire for every infantryman, established by the M1, became universal military doctrine. The German Sturmgewehr 44, developed in response to facing M1 Garands, influenced the Soviet AK-47, which influenced all subsequent infantry weapons. The M1 Garand had not just won a war, it had revolutionized warfare itself, proving that firepower at the individual level could be as decisive as artillery or armor. The M1 Garand embodied American production philosophy designed for mass production, not artisan craft. Every component was engineered for manufacture by specialized machinery, operated by workers with minimal training. This approach would dominate global manufacturing for decades after the war, where German production philosophy emphasized skilled craftsmen producing limited quantities of complex weapons. American philosophy emphasized simplified designs produced in massive quantities by ordinary workers. The G-43's failure wasn't just technical, but philosophical. It was designed for an industrial system that couldn't support its production requirements. The M1 Garand represented more than military victory. It proved that democratic industrial society could defeat totalitarian militarism through superior organization and production. Every rifle was evidence that free workers in a democracy could outproduce slave labor in a dictatorship. The German soldiers who faced M1 Garands learned this lesson in the most direct way possible, through incoming fire that never seemed to stop. They had been told they were superior warriors facing weak, materialistic Americans. Instead, they discovered they were obsolete soldiers facing the future of warfare. When German forces surrendered in May 1945, they had been defeated not just militarily, but technologically and industrially. The M1 Garand stood as the symbol of this defeat, a mass-produced weapon that outperformed German craftsmanship, carried by citizen soldiers who outfought German professionals. The mathematics were inescapable. 5.4 million M1 Garands versus 42,713 German semi-automatic rifles. A 3-to-1 firepower advantage at the squad level. Production cost quartered through efficiency. Training time halved through design simplicity. Behind every statistic were human realities. American soldiers survived because their M1 Garands gave them firepower superiority. German soldiers died because their Kar 98K rifles left them outgunned in every engagement. The M1 Garand had been exactly what Patton declared the greatest battle implement ever devised. It won its war not through elegance or precision, but through overwhelming firepower delivered by millions of rifles produced by the arsenal of democracy. For the German soldiers who faced it, the M1 Garand was more than a superior weapon. It was proof that their entire worldview was wrong. They had believed in racial superiority, military tradition, and warrior spirit. The M1 Garand proved that industrial capacity, democratic production, and citizen soldiers could destroy the most professional military force in the world. The rifle that won the war had done more than defeat an enemy. It had demonstrated that free societies could organize, produce, and fight more effectively than totalitarian states. In 8-round clips and semi-automatic fire, American democracy had proved its superiority over German fascism. The German soldiers were indeed outraged by Patton's greatest battle implement, but their outrage was really recognition that they had challenged the wrong enemy, with the wrong weapons based on the wrong assumptions. The M1 Garand had taught them, one firefight at a time, that modern war was won not by warriors, but by workers, not by heroes, but by industry, not by tradition, but by innovation. In the end, that was the M1 Garand's greatest victory, proving that democratic industrial might could overwhelm any enemy, no matter how professional, motivated, or ideologically committed. The German soldiers who cursed the ping of ejecting M-block clips were really cursing their failure to understand what they were fighting, not just an army, but the arsenal of democracy itself. The M1 Garand remains in military museums and private collections worldwide, still functional after 8 decades, still admired for its revolutionary design. It stands as a testament to American ingenuity, industrial power, and the democratic principle that the best equipment should be available to every soldier, not just elites. For those who faced it in combat, the M1 Garand was unforgettable, the weapon that turned citizen soldiers into superior warriors. Through mechanical advantage, it proved that technology and production, not ideology and tradition, would determine the future of warfare. The greatest battle implement ever devised had earned its title through proven superiority on every battlefield where it served, carried by soldiers who understood they held democracy's answer to tyranny in their hands.